Okay, before any fangirls get the wrong idea, I am not here to knock on fandom, okay? Quite the opposite. I am a shameless fangirl myself, alright? God forbid a girl have hobbies. No, I'm making this video as someone who has been a part of fandom culture since the dark ages, but also as someone who has watched fantasy consume the reality of so many to the point of what some might call being chronically online. But how bad can building your life online really be? Some of my best IRL friends have found the one IRL through Twitter group chats. I myself have launched my entire art career based solely off of 12-year-old me's love of creating fan art for the renowned New York Times best-selling classic, Percy Jackson.
You fell in love with God? Like Jesus?
So it can't be all that bad, right? I mean, if you belong to one of the most marginalized groups in the world, can you be blamed for escaping into hyper niche communities, which for many may be the only place in the world where they feel like they can be themselves? But if it's so healthy, how did so many participants turn so toxic? Where is the line between escapism into a safe space and an all-consuming addiction that you lose years of your life to? In 2012, the Japanese visual novel company Nitro Chiro released a controversial and widely successful video game, Dramatical Murder. This was Bandersnatch 6 years before Bandersnatch ever came to exist. A choose-your-own-adventure, high-stakes, multiple endings game, but make it gay porn. We'll get to that. It was so popular that they even adapted it into its own anime, minus the gay porn. Yeah, that anime wasn't that successful. I'm honestly pretty ashamed of my choice of outfit. Yes, I am dressed as Alba from the game. The jeans, the shirt, the studded belt, the jacket, and even the pink headphones. I'm really going all out for this. Someone better appreciate the video. I would say this game really popularized the BL genre in the West, with widespread fan translations way before the official English translation even came out. I think it's because it came in a package that wasn't your usual slice of life romance, which you can get anywhere. This was cyberpunk. It had plot, good or not, but most of all, it had some really cool visuals and art styles, a lot of which still influences my own art today. That covers why it was so popular, but why the controversy? DMMD, short for Dramatical Murder, had many endings, and like most visual novels and games like this, the choose your own adventure started with choose your own boyfriend for your awkward, naive MC. Each love interest you chose had a good ending or a bad ending, and the bad endings were really bad. So before now, I'd only ever admitted to like 2 people that I ever played this game, and I divulged every single detail of the bad endings and watched them hang on to every word with like this morbid curiosity and just horrified awe of what I was telling them. I fear YouTube guidelines, so I'm going to keep this brief, but one boyfriend beheads you, one turns you into a quadruple amputee in his pursuit to make you perfect, one turns into a mad, mindless demon that won't stop biting you, and one traps you in the hell that is his own sick, pain-obsessed mind, where you both are now sliced open everywhere your skin touches, and he keeps wanting to f. And these are just the basic bad endings, like the main storylines. There's other secret bad endings, like your pet dog turning into a human and trying to eat you, or a pair of Super Saiyan twins taking you in as their schmeck slave. Now you see why I don't advertise the fact that I played this game when I was 14. Me personally, I always had an interesting relationship with cringe. Unfortunately, I spent my last 2 years in high school and subsequent 4 years in college trying to be the cool girl. But no matter how hard I tried to bury her, the video game playing, anime watching, Percy Jackson obsessed lesbian just wouldn't fucking die. And I'm here to bear forth all my sins of the past, the biggest being playing Dramatical Murder. Probably playing it as a 14-year-old was a sin. It's the very reason I had sleep paralysis problems for an entire decade to come. It's okay. I'm okay now. But believe it or not, there were some positive long-term effects to it as well, because the good endings were good too. I grew up to actually create erotic sapphic art, and never until making this video did I realize how much that game must have affected the kind of art that I make today. Growing up in Pakistan, that game was like my first ever exposure to anything gay. Maybe it wasn't the best possible thing I could have been exposed to, but it gave me something. In a way, maybe seeing content like that gave me permission that it was okay when I was older. In that way, I guess the real point of this video is that, I mean, I was going for classic top in a BL manhwa with this look, but I think I unironically love it. I kind of ended up looking like Billie Eilish, which I'm not mad about because it's kind of the same aesthetic as a BL top. I mean, that's like a happy accident because the androgyny of this outfit is actually perfect for the point I'm making in this chapter. This is going to make a lot of people really mad at me, but you know, despite all the discourse you see online that queer people should just stay in their lane, most people are a lot more fluid than we want to admit, and then we want the straights to find out. I mean, look, if you're not, that's really great. I'm very happy for you. I don't mean that sarcastically. I kind of sounded sarcastic. I'm serious. Like, not everybody is, and that's great. But so many people are, even if they fully identify as a gay man or a lesbian woman, so many people still have some nuances to their identity because it's their identity. Nobody fits into a perfect box. And the way in which queer people seem so hell-bent on putting everybody in those boxes, I feel like just destroys the purpose of being queer in the first place. And you're probably wondering, what the hell does any of this have to do with BL? But I promise I have a point, okay? And you're probably going to appreciate it. I'm a lesbian. I know the only partnership that can fulfill me personally is another woman. I want an ambitious, smart, gorgeous, gamer wifey. Okay, I want every man's dream. But would I theoretically also be interested in having some casual fun with a gorgeous cottagecore goth GF girly gay boy? Maybe. Every man's other secret dream. And before the annoying, militant anti-fujoshis come screaming bloody murder about fetishizing, if you'd ever actually met a queer person in your life, you would know that the unspoken attraction between a dick and a twink is sacred, okay? And that is mutually agreed upon.
I love lesbians. There is a special bond when a gay person becomes friends with a lesbian. It's like the yin and yang of the universe. All the lesbians I know are so good looking and they're so hot. At this point, I do not know if I want to be them or be with them. Does that make me straight?
Some of my most fun flirtatious moments have been with other gay men or my trans feminine non-binary friends. It doesn't mean that they aren't attracted to men anymore, and it certainly doesn't mean that I'm not attracted to women anymore. As soon as like gay people get out of the box a little bit, we're like, oh, I thought you said you were gay. Yeah, I am, obviously. But what does that have to do with anything? I'm also a flirt. I'm a hoe. I love flirting with everybody. Sue me. Being gay and gender non-conforming in and of itself suggests a point where those lines will blur one way or another. You can't expect a lesbian who wears masculinity with more suave and dignity than any man you know to not attract people who are attracted to masculinity, whether they be gay men or straight women. And the same is true vice versa for beautiful men who wear their femininity like a badge of honor. Femininity is unfortunately always conformity for cis women and those who are born female. Even for those women who love it, it is first a burden that they bear that is forced onto them from the outside, and they have to spend years finding a way to wear it on their own terms. But when it is worn by those who were denied it and who had to fight the whole world to be seen in it, there is an unmatched level of beauty and authenticity in their femininity that I find incredibly attractive. And what I found when looking into the widespread culture of girls who fall so hard for BL romances is a very deep and very visceral attraction to femininity. Femininity, for once, seen as a rebellion and regaining a sense of self instead of femininity that shackles you to conformity. And so it's no surprise why a lot of these girls, who you might assume are attracted to men if all they read about is two boys kissing, actually tend to abstain from men altogether, even those girls who identify as straight. When you look into it, gay men don't tend to even make up 20% of the fan base of boys love, because gay men are by and large attracted to masculinity, and boys love isn't about that. Female readership of BL in Thailand, a country currently dominating the space in BL TV shows, is estimated to be about 80%. In Japan, majority of BL manga authors are likely to be heterosexual women, but many also identify as lesbian, bisexual, or questioning. But if most readers and writers of BL are heterosexual, why don't they seem to actually like men? Because the entire point of the obsession is that the kind of men they like don't exist. Boys' love is a fantasy world where men are empathetic, vulnerable, sensitive, and yes, feminine. They are men in anatomy because that is what straight women are attracted to, but they're like women in all other ways. There's something the Queen ContraPoints once said in a bloopers reel of one of her videos, and I'm gonna add that here because it makes the point perfectly.
So what if my fantasies make no sense? You want to talk about things that don't make sense? Heterosexuality. Let's put that under the microscope, You want me to believe that a straight woman who knows the difference between magenta and mauve is gonna date a straight man who thinks it's gay to wash his underwear, and that's just gonna work out fine. You think it's safe to raise a child in that environment? I don't think so. Not on my watch. See, I think straight men should date each other. They can sit on the couch all day playing Xbox and then each other. And then straight women can pair off, decoupage some shit, and eat each other out. Isn't that better? Isn't that more rational?
I think straight women who fall down the BL rabbit hole are just being excruciatingly honest about the fact that maybe women do live on Venus and men do live on Mars. The two genders in their modern encapsulation are just not a good match for each other. Trigger warning for those of you who've experienced this, as I myself have, but how many times have you heard a girl tell her girl best friend, "If only you were a man, you'd be perfect for me"? Well, yeah, that's because I'm a woman. You want a woman without the woman bits. As a lesbian on the outside looking into the situation, most hetero relationships just look like a woman making do with what's available. And I don't blame them. Everybody deserves love, and we all know you can't help who you're attracted to. But just like there's nothing wrong with settling and compromising on certain realities, like he's just always going to leave the toilet seat up, just so that you can have a good companionship in your life. I think there's also nothing wrong with recognizing that unless you get really lucky with the man that you find, you may never be truly satisfied by a relationship. Because that's what a lot of these BL fangirlies are doing. They're just being honest. And I respect them for it. On the one hand, so many female BL readers identify as asexual or aromantic. Abstinence from a dating pool that is very unlikely to have anything that they're looking for anyways. On the other hand, you'd think such a strong attraction to femininity might lead someone to understand that they are attracted to women. And for quite a few, it does. If two women cosplay as male characters and stick their tongue down each other's throats, it's only a matter of time before they delete the extra steps and just realize they like kissing girls. But what about the huge chunk of girls that openly identify as queer and yet are completely averse to picking up any story under the genre girls love? What's that about, bestie? This is the most straightforward answer I may offer all video, but those girls are very likely not gay. How could you say I'm not gay, Minna? That is so not valid of you. I just can't read girls love because of the lack of complex female characters.
Hot tub's not really my thing.
What is your thing then?
Complex female characters.
And the lack of deep, riveting storylines present in boys love.
มีอะไร คือมึงจะพูดอะไรมันก็รีบๆดิ กูรีบ คือว่า มองกูขนาดเนี้ย กูก็จูบไปล้มเลย น่ารำคาญ
Oh yeah, absolutely riveting, bestie. I mean, for a chapter on GL, I figured it would be very fitting to wear something inspired by Engfa Wadha. The blazer, the blouse, it's very masculine, feminine balance, which she is so good at. Settle down, okay? Look, I'm not here to dictate who can and can't join the family, alright? I'm not trying to do that. As an avid lesbian fantasy reader myself, I always found the excuse of lack of complex female characters very interesting, because just say you've maybe never even actually tried to look for a good sapphic novel, because I promise you they're out there. In fact, there are so many that it gives me anxiety about how many I still have yet to finish. And my friends keep suggesting more and more, especially this gigantic thing over here. I don't even know how I'm gonna even start that, so I just never did. Now, I know that stuff like that, and even the Monster Baru or the Traitor Baru Cormorant, although amazing lesbian novels with lesbian MCs, are not Classic girls love. And yes, in that genre, there is a lack of riveting storylines for sure, but to pretend that boys love is any more sophisticated is where I draw the line. It's not the storyline that's turning you away from GL, it's the G. For me, the only boys love drama that I could stomach was a masterpiece like I Told Sunset About You, which subsequently led me down an entire rabbit hole of queer excellence in Thai cinema and Thai entertainment industry with the queer director, the queer two actors. Clearly I became a really big fan. But yes, while it took a masterpiece like I Told Sunset About You for me to really sit down and watch a BL drama, which is very much queer coming of age story, but for GL Thai dramas, I literally sat through the entirety of Gap the series. Yeah, I watched 12 hours of that. Because for me, GL is not even about complex female characters or riveting storylines. I'll watch it without any of those anyway. I'm gay, I just want to see the two pretty girls kiss. Now don't get me wrong, I do love complex female characters and plot lines too, but I'm not gonna get that in this genre, so I'm not looking for it. That's what these are for, which I'll get to this as well. There's a lot of topics we're gonna cover, okay? Now look, I wasn't always able to get into GL myself. So I do think there is a caveat here. There is some truth to actually being queer, being gay, and avoiding content surrounding that. I remember when, right before I first came out as a lesbian, and that's after I had been identifying as bisexual for years and running away from my attraction to women, I remember every time the L word would come up on the Netflix recommended, would get this like really annoyed feeling and frustrated feeling and be like, why does it keep recommending me that? And like, why would I even watch that? And I would skip it. Fast forward to me actually coming out. And after that, I binged the entire thing. I mean, that is literally my lesbian Gossip Girl. It is so bad that it is the best thing I've ever seen. I mean, I was obsessed with that after coming out, and I feel like almost every baby gay girl is, right? So I understand that feeling, and I do think that that's the difference. If you spent your earlier years avoiding girls love content because it was forcing you to start a conversation that you weren't ready for yet, then valid. Here's your valid award. But I'm just trying to say that if you openly ID as queer now, and yet you have absolutely no interest in anything sapphic related while still binging the same trash BL content, I just fear that there may be some misunderstanding happening. But hey, it's your life. I'm just pointing out an observation. And either way, I think the truth is that you're afraid of what girls love content might reveal about yourself. Either a hidden attraction that you have to women that you have been denying for a very long time, or the hidden truth that you may not have the kind of attraction to women that you thought. Now, is there a smaller volume of content in classic GL style books and series? Yes, for sure. But I will say that we are starting to catch up, especially in Thailand. After the wild international and local success of Gap the series, Thailand's TV industry now knows how much demand there actually is for GL. And since then, they have been producing GL content like a machine, okay? Free and Becky from Gap already have multiple series together. Inkfa and Charlotte seem to produce a new series every few months, and the fan base for the off-screen relationship runs deep. I know, because I'm low-key a part of it. I've been to Thailand twice in the last 12 months, and on this year's trip, I could not walk 10 steps without coming face to face with Ling Orm. Brother, they were everywhere. Thailand has created a successful proof of concept, and other countries are starting to follow suit because they can see there is a very real market for this. I've been saying this a lot, and not just in terms of Asian, Southeast Asian GL content, but also just here in the West as well with certain pop artists. We are seeing a lesbian golden age in like the last 2 years. And with that, you know, that's why there have been some that are maybe not actually lesbian, Jojo, Siwa, and that's fine. Everybody figures themselves out at their own pace, but I think that's contributing to why so many people are taking on the label when they may not have actually identified that way. I think it's just becoming more popular. I think it's just on the rise. You're hearing about it more. You're hearing the label more in a positive light. I think the popularity is a good thing, but it may also be really overwhelming for a lot of people who are still questioning, and then they see that door open and just kind of stumble into it without really deciding to walk through it. But anyway, well, it's clear that GL content is obviously catching up in Asian entertainment, and the kind of lesbian music artistry is catching up here in the West, and people are interested and people want to know more about it, and it's kind of new. There is a space where lesbianism has always held its own in fandom. A genre I've recently dipped my toes into is cozy fantasy, and you may be able to tell from the way I'm dressed and the background that we are talking about cottagecore. There is Legends and Lattes, Can't Spell Treason Without T, and my personal favorite, the Robot and Monk series. Cottagecore is defined by Merriam-Webster as an aesthetic trend, especially among women, marked by clothing, decor, and activities associated with traditional pastoral lifestyles. It is particularly inspired by nostalgic, romanticized conceptions of the English countryside or American homesteading. Some hallmarks of cottagecore include floral prints, flowing dresses, rustic interior design, homey atmosphere, and an interest in gardening, baking, and handicrafts. Cottagecore is the ultimate form of escapism, running away from or escaping a crumbling capitalist society is the new American dream, especially among young girls. But it comes with one caveat. The aesthetic itself is in many ways a result of capitalism. Almost all hyper-niche, Pinterest-founded aesthetics are. Whenever I hear people talk about their dreams of escaping into the woods and living in a cozy, beautifully decorated cottage where they paint all day and bake bread, I wonder how they think such a dream would actually become a reality. Because the truth is, that level of freedom requires financial freedom. And if you weren't born to an oligarch, which I'm assuming you're not, that takes some degree of work. Probably more than some degree. You don't have to slave away at your 9 to 5, but it will take goals, dreams, and action to get to the freedom that you crave. It won't come from abandoning your life. I understand how the dream itself can serve as a cozy escape. Maybe you're yelling at the screen right now. I don't actually want to live it, it's just my comfort fantasy. But the main point I'm trying to make in this entire video is that it doesn't have to be just a fantasy. All hope is not lost. This book, or whatever other book you read, does not have to be the only place where you can find a comfortable, happy life. And while stories can be very motivational and inspiring, if you lose yourself within them and begin to avoid life entirely, you may miss out on all the chances to have made the dreams you spilled into these stories your actual reality. True change takes some level of discomfort, but it's only sacrificing that discomfort now for a more satisfying life lived overall. In fact, that's exactly what Legends and Lattes is about. V takes a bet on herself to go against the grain, go against what everyone else thought was possible, and make her dream come true. No one in the land had ever heard of coffee before. She's crazy, they said. A lunatic. Who would ever drink some bean juice? Well, you can imagine how well it paid off to be the only coffee shop for miles. The underlying theme of the book is that she does it all by an unwavering belief that she can have a better life and a better circumstance. But I have to be honest, you may have noticed by now that low-stakes, cozy, soft romances is not exactly my genre, personally. I wish I could love them. I wish I knew how to sip tea and frolic. I love the writing and the ambiance and even the simplicity of the message of a book like Legends and Lattes, but I just can't sit through the whole thing. At least definitely not in one sitting. And yet I can read page after page of this strange, abhorrent, convoluted, plain, weird, lesbian necromancer space opera thingy. Yes, I tricked you. We are not just talking about cottagecore. If it comes to sapphic fantasy, we are going to have to talk about So, although this chapter is called Bury Your Gaze, that's not exactly what I'm going to be talking about, at least not in the sense it's usually discussed online. I'm not going to be talking about the Hays Code or the way that burying your gaze is used as kind of like a homophobic, disregarding of queer characters in mainstream media that is very heteronormative media. Rather, Bury Your Gaze is my fun little spin on if cozy fantasy is low stakes queer fantasy, then Bury Your Gaze is some serious high stakes queer fantasy, and that is my style. So I'm talking about books like these, which are some of my favorite novels, and this is where we stop talking about BL versus GL, Sapphic versus Achillean. I actually hate both of those words so much. I almost always use them ironically, and there's no other way to talk about Sapphic media without using the word Sapphic, and Achillean is just stupid, but whatever. No more boys versus girls. This is where I'm going to appreciate all queer media, all queer books that I love, because if there is one fandom space that I think is the least toxic compared to all the others that I have talked about and will talk about in this video, it is the book fandom. Now, don't get me wrong, it can become toxic, but it's very rare to actually have the kind of detrimental effects in your life that a lot of these other fandoms can have. And I think a big part of that is because of the fact that things like BL and GL, especially in TV dramas, are being made by these giant companies that are basically queer baiting to make a bunch of money. They realize that queer people are hungry for queer media, so they make really shitty, low quality, bad writing dramas, and everybody eats it up and everybody throws money at it. But stuff like these books are timeless and they're works of art, and they actually mean something not just to the people who read them, but to the authors who wrote them. This isn't a cash grab. This isn't queer baiting. It's real queer representation. Even when it's dark and ugly, it touches the soul of queer stories, queer characters, and queer readers. But if I'm going to be talking about death and gaze, you just can't have that conversation without mentioning this book and Nico D'Angelo, who also has his own book now, which I have not read, but I do have a signature from Rick Riordan in this book. I did get to see him, and also Mark Oshiro, who wrote this book with him. Now, Nico D'Angelo and the Percy Jackson series and Rick Riordan in general are a very important part of this conversation for me. As I said earlier, I'm a huge fan, but also Nico was the first queer character in a story that was for children or for young adults that I got to see. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe Rick actually wrote him into the story this way, and is basically saying that it's okay. He's not afraid of the parents' backlash, which they gave him, the teachers' backlash, all the readers' backlash of how can you put this in a children's story? He did not care. Not just books, but even shows that have had beautiful representation, like Legend of Korra. If we're talking about Percy Jackson and how that brought me representation, Legend of Korra showing two girls in a very clearly romantic relationship back when I was only 14 years old, I literally could not believe what I was seeing. And I remember feeling, again, this feeling of like, I can't believe they put that in there. They're saying it's okay. Somebody out there is taking a stand for someone like me while I can't. And that's where the important side of fandom does come in. But at the same time, even in spaces as positive as book fandoms, I still found myself as a teenager running away from the problems at school, from any bullying or whatever was going on at home, by burying myself in books and on Tumblr. And that's fine for some time, especially as a kid. It's good to have that outlet. I don't know what I would have done without it. But eventually, I started to realize that I need to come out of my shell too. I can't just spend my entire life watching other people's stories or reading other people's stories and not creating my own. Now, that's where my perspective on Bury Your Gaze comes in, which is that it's not always a bad thing. Hear me out. When it comes to why the term was coined, which is mainstream media using gay people as a kind of disposable plot device, either in mainstream heteronormative media or in queer stories being told by straight men where they're kind of getting off on the tragedy of it all, yes, in those instances, I completely agree that we need to be rid of Bury Your Gaze. But what we really need to be rid of is people like that getting to tell queer stories in the first place. However, when it is someone responsibly and authentically telling a queer story to represent the queer experience, death is a part of life, and I think it's okay for them to use that as a device, adding depth into the story, making it more beautiful. There are so many examples of some of the most beautiful queer pieces of media, whether it's film, TV shows, or books, that the queer character has died, but it didn't take away from their story. If anything, it added depth to it. And especially for me, when it comes to books, some of my favorites are books like The Traitor Baru Cormorant, which talk about a world eerily similar to ours and focus on their struggles. It's about a lesbian woman as the main character in an extremely homophobic world. And of course, I would not ask anybody to read this who is not ready for it, but when it comes down to it, while positive representations are very important because we did not get to have them for so long, I think it's still amazing to be telling queer stories that talk very authentically about the struggles of being queer and are able to work through them in books like this. And so that's why for me, it will never be a GL drama or a cozy sapphic fantasy that will be my favorite book. It will always be the heartbreaking, aching, painful, 10 people died stories that really capture my heart. And I think it's the same for most people. There is a reason why League of Legends Arcane became such a huge hit show. It's because the stakes are so high for all the characters, and the queer characters at the center of it bring so much realness, rawness to the show. And in the world of Arcane, there is not really homophobia, but you could still see the struggle of Vi as a woman, of Vi as a character, Vi as someone in love. And so I think all of this craze online for the BL dramas like Heartstopper or any of the Thai BL dramas, and don't get me wrong, I liked Heartstopper, but these are just feel-good shows that are starting to become feel-good for straight people. If queer people are still struggling so deeply around the world, why is so much of our media now starting to become escapist from that reality instead of addressing that reality in an honest way, a raw way that might actually help us further our minds, our acceptance towards queer people and understanding their struggles? I think it's always going to be better to uplift the nittier, grittier stories, the stories that straight people maybe don't want to hear about, than it is going to be the palatable stories, because the palatable stories will only get us so far. Can you tell that this chapter is about K-pop? Is it obvious enough? Is it obvious now? Yes, I have a PP Crit light stick. It's the only one I have, and if I had a choice, it wouldn't be. I would have the Mubong, the little radish, for Mamamoo girlies if I could ever find it, but I can't find it anywhere, so this is the only one I have. But it's okay, because I do have Hwasa's fan. Listen, I'm a lesbian, okay? I don't know how to do all this. I built these 2 bookshelves. That's what I do. Now, I'm no stranger to being a fan of K-pop, T-pop, obviously. All right. Those trips to Thailand that I mentioned were all to see him in concert, also to see my friends and explore Thailand. But this was definitely the anchor. This was the thing that brought me to that place. And now I love Thailand for so much more. And I'm learning the language too. So it's the positive side of fandom, right? It opened me up to new experiences if I let it, or I could have just sat in my room and not let it open me up to anything. That's where the problem lies. And I'm going to talk about the positive side first because there is a huge positive side for me, at least. For example, with PP Crit. Now, I know I keep joking about my obsession and my shrine, but genuinely, he was one of the first openly LGBTQ icons that I saw in Asian music. For the Pakistani side, there's almost no chance of anybody like that because of our culture. A lot of like other Asian countries, especially Southeast Asian countries, are the only place where I feel like I get a representation that is close enough to home where I feel some connection to it. And that's why I Told Sunset About You left such a big impact on me, and the lead actor in that, when I found out that he is queer in real life, he's gender queer, all of that. It just became somebody that I could look up to for the first time, never having had anybody in any close proximity to the culture I came from. representing queerness and transness on such a large scale. That's the biggest part of this. I mean, of course, there's a lot of smaller creators, but to see someone really make it the way he did, I mean, literally Balenciaga's global brand ambassador and huge concerts in China with 80,000 fans. China, where it's still a big deal, it's still a big issue being openly LGBTQ in artistry and entertainment and in becoming known for your work as a queer person. There's still a lot of censorship in Asian countries. So to see somebody like him do these amazing things and represent so many of us, of course there's a positive side to that. And it brought me community. I made friends through this. Like, you can check out my vlog, one of my first videos on my YouTube channel about going to his concert in Thailand and how much it meant to me. And also what I mentioned earlier about very feminine, trans feminine people, I'm talking about people like this. So there's that kind of representation for people too. It's maybe less so in K-pop because of the censorship, but that's why I broadened this chapter to outside of just K-pop, because as I mentioned in an earlier chapter, we are seeing a golden age of lesbianism in Western pop as well. We have Chappell Roan, we have Renee Rapp, and we just have so many amazing queer female artists right now that are making it really, really big. And I think that's really important. And I think it's great that people are fans of these people and there are fandoms surrounding this, because those fandoms are people who never had this kind of representation before. You know, they never got to see someone like them, someone not even just the same sexuality, but just either the way they dress or express themselves, just the queerness of it all. They never got to see that represented on such a huge scale with so much acceptance, so many other fans, like mainstream. So there is a positive side to being a fan. I don't think it's all bad. I don't think it's all parasocial relationships and throwing your life away, but I do think it can easily become that. K-pop fandom, celebrity fandom, when you're dealing with real people, is when stuff gets really messy. I've met a lot of great people through fandom, but it's also made me hear about a lot of crazy stories within fandom circles, people that are stalking the celebrities, trying to like figure out which airport they're going to be getting off at so they can go early and get like crazy stuff. If you ask the question why K-pop and sort of celebrity and music fandoms are so toxic or can get so toxic, I think it's because while these are real people, they're obviously selling you a very polished version of a dream that they know you're going to buy. Now, that sucks for them because they're human beings literally being sold as a product, but it sucks for you too because you almost forget they're human sometimes, right? You're going to love somebody, you're going to be a huge fan of them, you're going to see them as human until they do something that is different than the expectations that were set of this product in your head. And now you're starting to lash out. That's how so many of the biggest fans become also the biggest toxic stans, right? The biggest haters of these celebrities. That kind of behavior comes from a resentment of not living out your own life the way that you want. You're seeing this amazing person that at first you love. They're your idol. They're beautiful. They're talented. They're getting all this success. They're getting everything. And the minute they do something you wouldn't do with it, you get so angry. And you don't even realize that it's because deep down, you feel resentment that you didn't get to do any of those things. You didn't get to live any of your dreams. So now you're mad. I feel like a lot of it is just resentment. But when it comes to stalkers, I don't even know how to break down the psychology behind that, because that's like an obsessive love to the point where people are following celebrities onto planes, booking the entire plane. That BTS video, girl. Like, I just don't really understand that psyche, but that goes into such an extreme parasocial relationship. The best way that I can guess as to what might be going on in the minds of people like that is they feel like some reason they're so delusional, they feel they have a chance, right? They can't even see that that idol wants them literally in jail. Like, they wish you were anywhere but near them, and yet you're like right next to them on the plane and they're like, eject her now. We're like 1,000 feet in the air, I don't care, eject her now. And the thing is, that level of delusion is so misplaced, because you know how they say that people become super successful by being very, very delusional that they will get the thing that they want? That's very true. In fact, all of your idols will probably agree they got to where they are because they were just super delusional about their ability to make it. Now, if you use your powers of delusion for your own life and self, imagine what you could do with your life. But yet you put those powers of delusion onto somebody else, onto situations you can't control, such as a idol falling in love with you. Unless you are so meticulous and so smart about it, unless you do it that way, you are not going to marry your idol. Don't waste your delusion on that ridiculous dream. You don't actually know who these people are behind the curtain. You're falling in love with the version of them that is literally created. It is like machine made for the audience. It is literally catered to you. That's why you're falling for it so hard, but you don't see that. You think it's because this person is so amazing and so lovable, and that must be why. No, they have an entire team behind their literal brand image, their branding. It is a product that they're trying to sell you. The person is not a product, but their image, very much so. And you keep falling for it. I've fallen for it 100 times. And so I get it. But at the same time, it's just about being mindful. At the back of your head, at least, you always know that this isn't actually what it looks like. There's always more to the story, and you don't need to know. You can just enjoy their music and be like, yeah, this is what they're showing me. I like their music. I still think they're a nice person. Great. But when you start to think that you really know them and that you can get them to fall for you, or that you know that they're a horrible person, so you made an entire hate account dedicated to them, that's when it's going a little too far, bestie. Bring your energy back to yourself. Literally top lesson of this video. Be Delulu, but only for yourself. It doesn't mean that your idols are evil people. They're not. Some of them might really be very evil, but a lot of them are not. They're just trying to get their bag, right? You should be trying to get yours too. Consider it. Take it or leave it. I don't know. At the very least, that's what I've started doing for my life. I've realized that I need to come first, and my life has changed so quickly since I realized that. I mean, I'm literally out here making YouTube videos. They're getting like 10 views, but the fact that I'm making them and putting myself out there in the first place is a huge step for me, dude. I didn't think that I would ever be able to do this, be the one in front of the camera instead of behind it and watching everybody do their own thing. I'm just trying to be a story to encourage you to do the same thing. Maybe you have so many other dreams that you are holding off on because you're too afraid, and again, using this escapism to avoid the fear of the things you actually want. I'm telling you to face the fear head on. If you can literally be that bold, I'm literally talking directly to the people from that video of the BTS plane video. If you can be that bold in your life, you can find a way to get on the plane with them, and you're delusional enough to think they'll fall in love with you. Take all of that and use it for yourself. You have no idea how amazing that energy is. You're using it for all the wrong things, bestie. But if I could condense this video into some major points, it would be fandom is okay as long as it's a way to wind down, or a hobby, or something in the background of your life. Or it could be inspiration. Maybe you just really love certain artists because they inspire you. But when it starts taking over your life, when it becomes escapism, when it becomes an excuse to look away from the pain that you need to face to build a better life, it is time to reevaluate. This video is to remind you that you are more important. Nobody's going to put you first except yourself. If you're not even putting you first and you're putting a bunch of strangers on a stage before yourself, who is ever going to put you first in life? So I hope this inspired even just one person. And if you like this video and you want more video essays like this from me, then like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.